Welcome to Geek Out Virtual Con, the replay of our special two-day live streaming event, April 11th through 12th, 2020. This is the Comic Book Corner, hosted by Rob Andersin, the underground indie advocating devil. You can find him on indieadvocates.com, and I highly recommend that you do. This panel includes creators like Bryan Silverbax, Daniel Kalban, Jonathan Hedrick, Luke Stone, Phil Falco, Preston Poulter, and Travis Gibb. Follow these guys wherever you can, and if you cannot buy their books, at least share them out so other people can follow them too. In the meantime, enjoy the panel.
All right, well, Rob, you have got a green room full, so I am going to back out and let you have it, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to basically what you would see at a Comic-Con. This is where all the creators are hanging out with indie comics. We're going to be talking to some great creators. We're going to be doing it, so we're going to go one at a time to every creator, let them pitch their books. We're going to have different creators showing up on and off throughout the hour and 25 minutes that we have. We thank Geek Out for doing this, and Geek Insider for, of course, doing this, because we're thrilled to be here. Of course, I run Indie Advocates. For those who don't know me, it's weird. Usually I'm the one hosting it, so everyone knows me. I am the underground indie advocating devil, and I am here to introduce you to some amazing people. You can follow me at indieadvocates.com or mrandersin.com. But first, I want to show you just how many people we have. Let me see how many people we can actually fit in the stream. We might be able to get everyone at once. How exciting is this? There will be more coming, I'm sure. We lost a couple people. What we're going to do is go around. Everyone's on mute right now, so that's cool. I'll just go around the room. Give your pitch. I want you guys to think of it this way. Someone's just walked up to your table, and they stopped. They have you in their eyes, and they're looking at you. What do you do next? And we're going to go around opposite order. So we'll start over here with Bryan. And then as you guys see your picture come up, just start talking. Bryan, you have the floor.
All right. I did want to go first. Hey, welcome to my table. I'm Bryan Silverbax. I'm an indie artist. I started out doing comic covers for Scout Comics. And then I ended up doing my own comic book and created my own character, Loggerhead, who's a big giant turtle man that kicks a lot of ass as if he's like in a horror movie. So I do this kind of stuff. I got covers for days, and I take commissions. So on to the next dude, I guess. And check out Bryan Silverbax on social media. That was quick.
Hi, I'm Daniel Kalban. I am the writer of American Dreams, of which we have issue 1 and issue 2. It's a comic set in 1900s New York City, where a young immigrant gets caught up in a mad science experiment that's being done by Thomas Edison. And when that goes horribly wrong, he gains superpowers and has to decide what to do with them. And so it gets this whole backdrop of the turn of the 20th century. So you have Harry Houdini showing up, Emma Goldman, J.P. Morgan, the aforementioned Thomas Edison, and a few surprises along the way. They'll point him in the direction of if he's going to use the powers for good or for evil and what he's going to do with them, because he's to decide what he's going to do. And they're published by Short Fuse Media. And that's it for now. So on to the next guy. Thanks, guys.
Hey, everyone. I'm Phil Falco, and I am the creator of Haunting. It's a supernatural horror comic which follows our lead, Bram, a bratty teenager who raises the dead wherever he goes. First-time creator here, so very excited to be launching this project. The first issue is on Kickstarter right now. The elevator pitch I would give is that wherever he goes, the dead rise. He spent his entire life turning a blind eye to this, not really paying much mind to the damage that he causes, but his past starts to catch up with him when a vengeful man from his past corners him and an innocent bystander in a small town. I guess that's everything I have, so I'll hand off to the next person.
Hey, Preston Poulter, you missed the intro. We are just introducing ourselves. The idea is that someone has just come by your comic book table at a Comic-Con, and we're doing intros like how you would pitch to someone. We'll give you a couple minutes to see how everyone else is doing it, and then we're going to jump to you. Okay, Preston?
Okay.
And Jonathan's joining us, too. Jonathan, I see you in the green room. We'll be with you in a minute. But first, we're going to move over to the one, the only, Travis Gibb.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my table. I just finishing a packing order for comics that are ordered online. Let me show you what I got here. So right here we got broke down 4 dead bodies. This is a great book. I know it's a little glossy on that. We've got all sorts of alternate covers. You know, if you like sketch covers, these flip. They're called our artist editions. But broke down 4 dead bodies, about 2 guys who break down on the side of the road. Lots of guns, lots of violence, lots of F words. We've got the first 2 issues out right now. And then, sorry, there's a kid is Naomi. Can you not do that right now? And then parallels. We've got parallels. This is my short stories, a whole bunch of short stories in there, which is really cool. And then last but not least at my table, I've got the Advocator. So what this is 6 short stories, 4 pages each. We got 3 editions of this. I just grabbed one. Each of them has a 4 pages, like a gateway into somebody else's universe. If you want to look at any of my stuff, it's at brokedown4deadbodies.com. Thank you.
Don't you do a book called Advocator too?
I just promoted the Advocator.
No, but isn't it coming this year? Don't you want to talk about the open submission?
I've got a lot of stuff. Sure. All right. So we got Cthulhu Invades Oz. That's a really cool thing coming out. We've got basically a whole bunch of Cthulhu creatures invading Wizard of Oz. Bryan, you just saw, he's going to be in it, which is really cool. Advocator's got some issues coming out. We got 2020. So if you are an indie creator, as you're seeing this right now, you can submit a 4 to 10 page story to be an Advocator 2020. It's going to be a trade paperback. We're really excited about it. It's kind of changing the format. Last year, we had to decline a lot of people. We did 3 issues, but instead of just doing 3 issues this time, we're just going to all put it in one big giant one. So that's it.
Preston, are you ready to go?
Well, I don't need. I mean, look, I do a convention a week. Back when conventions actually existed. So I mean, I've pitched my comic books like literally thousands of times. I can give you guys pointers if you want.
No, we want to know what you create.
Oh, okay.
Tell us what you create.
Well, I make a comic book called White Lily, which is about the 2 deadliest female fighter pilots who ever lived. And there's Guinevere and the Divinity Factory. And probably on Monday, I'm going to launch a custom cover for issue 2 on that on Indiegogo. And that one's sales on that one are big compared to White Lily. So I guess that's the direction people want to go in. It's got, sexy lady and magic. And there will be Gatsby in issue 4 because he's gonna enter the public domain by the time that comes out. And when I was presenting the writing pages, because I also have a writing group on my channel on Wednesdays over at Pocket Jacks Comics, and we were going over some of the pages for issue 4, and one of the notes was, man, this story can go anywhere, because it's got the spiritual dimension and space and sci-fi. So it's this magical sci-fi world that has a lot of possibilities, as well as a lot of retros, because we're in the 20s again. So really, my idea for making it was to explore a lot of 20s motifs. So we got like flapper dresses and Gatsby and Art Deco architecture, and the comic is kind of about feel and style in terms of its creation, and people seem to be responding to it. So I'm pretty happy with that. And
we're going to go ahead and hot tag in Jonathan. Jonathan, give us your pitch. We just showed up to your table. Tell us why we should invest in you.
All right. Well, I have a book called Freak Show Princess. Here you go. This is my zombie one-shot story. I just ended a Kickstarter for this book that was successfully funded, almost triple funded actually. And it's like I said, a short story about a woman trapped in her house, boarded up house during a zombie apocalypse with her dog, and she's reminiscing about the events that kind of led her into that situation. I also have a superhero book called Capable. Here's the main cover of it. And the premises of Capable is a world where one day handicapped people wake up with a superpower that's opposite of what their disability was. So issue 1 is kind of an origin story for the main character. And as the series progresses, we're going to see what people are going to do with those newfound powers. Besides that, here's the Kickstarter cover for Freak Show Princess. This was limited print only for the Kickstarter. Leanna Kangas, who did She Said Destroy for Vault, did that cover for me. So really excited to be able to work with her. And when issue 2 comes out within the next month or so, I'll have a Kickstarter for Capable issue 1 and 2. So that's what I got going on. Short and sweet.
And I am Mr. Andersin. I create books about fetish monsters and more, including a book about a farting elephant that actually teaches morals. I also am part of the Advocator team and have some great, exciting projects coming up. But today, we're here to entertain you. So if you guys have questions, please ask them in the question area. We're going to go around the room and we're going to talk about some stuff. And the first thing I want to talk about, because we're here, I want to talk to the creators about pitching. And we're going to be doing a panel on this next week. So this is a preview to a panel that we will entirely dedicate an entire show to. But for now, we're going to open up the floor and we're going to talk about the importance of pitching.
Tune in to find out more after this 30-second break.
Hey guys, Matthew here with geekinsider.com, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, mobileedge.com. If you're a gamer and looking for some gear to protect your gaming gear, Mobile Edge has gaming backpacks, they've got totes, they've got all kinds of carrying cases and tech for today's mobile lifestyle. Protect your tech with Mobile Edge. Look sharp, travel smart, Mobile Edge. Bring it on.
We're going to open up the floor and we're going to talk about the importance of pitching. And Preston, if you want to take the begin on this, because I can't see you raise your hand, just go ahead and start us off.
How about Luke?
I don't get to pitch?
Yeah.
Oh, Luke, sorry. I'm sorry, Luke.
Poor Luke.
Are you good? You didn't
What?
answer. I'm waiting to see if you said you had computer problems. I said, tell me when
Oh,
you're
I'm
good.
all set. Yeah, I'm all set. Yeah, I'm all set.
Luke was having problems, so I was trying to be nice to Luke. But go ahead, Luke.
All right. Hey, my name is Luke Stone, and I'm the writer and artist behind Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. I do all words and pictures, and that's basically what I like to tell people. So if you like comics, this is the right place to be. If you're like me and you've ever been into like Greek mythology growing up, then this is probably kind of the book for you. If you've heard of a creature called the Nephilim, you might already have a little bit of a backstory to this, but if you don't, the Nephilim were a creature that was basically an angel-human hybrid, and a bunch of different religions talk about this kind of thing that happened, and they predate the Greek gods by about 1,500 years. And so many people, smarter than me, believe that the Greek gods were actually just exaggerations of real-life Nephilim. So I started thinking, the whole 23andMe, the Ancestry.com thing. What if some people were actually descendants of ancient Nephilim and they were walking around with some angel DNA in them or the Nephilim DNA in them? And what if instead of like a recessive trait that would give you red hair or blue eyes, maybe you had a recessive trait that if something could happen to wake it up, you'd be able to lift buildings or teleport or control things with your mind. And I thought, man, that'd be really cool. Just walking around no one's really walking around now anywhere, but you get my point, right? So we started having that idea, and that was really kind of where Hybrids, the Sons of Gods come from. It's a action-adventure story that's set around kind of this advent of the new superhuman species. It includes theories kind of surrounding the Nephilim and ancient aliens and things like that. And it's really, to be honest, it's set against a rescue attempt. We find out that people that start to develop these powers overnight, seemingly out of nowhere, these people start to vanish, and they're being abducted by a deadly human trafficking ring. And so we follow a small group of heroes that's set to try to rescue them. We've got, right now, we're kickstarting the entire saga, the whole first arc of Trash Day, but it's the 5th issue. We actually have really cool covers on our Kickstarter right now. You see that lava? We're going to do an entire set of books with that. But we do have all 5 books available on our Kickstarter. You can see that. We've also got we have the 5th book, and then we also have a special Kickstarter only mini comic that's kind of like a zero series, a zero issue. We've got hats, we've got shirts, more shirts. There you go. You see it? There, it's upside down, but that's cool. So we've got all this stuff going on. We've got trading cards, we've got buttons, we've got stickers, we've got posters galore. We've got all kinds of stuff, and we're actually even in development with an RPG game, so theater of the mind kind of stuff. We're really excited about that, and you can check us out on Kickstarter at Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, 1 through 5, the complete first arc.
All right, so you're good to go, Luke, now fully. Computer's all reset.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Do me a favor, gentlemen. Drop in your private chat. You see the bottom part that's actually scrolling my sites. Give me your sites. Give me a place they can find you, and we'll have it scroll throughout the whole program today. So while we're talking about it, Preston, start us off. How important is a pitch at a Comic-Con?
Oh, it's very important. Let's see, and the last con I did, like right before quarantine hit, was Wizard World Columbus. No, yeah, it was Columbus. Cleveland. Sorry, Wizard World Cleveland. I get all these cities in Ohio confused. I'm a Texan. I'm like, what? It's a city in Ohio, but it was me, and I had an artist to my right, and after like 2 days, and like I'm selling pretty well, and he was a little disgruntled because he wasn't selling quite as well. And on like Sunday, the last day of the show, he looks at me and he goes, "You're really good at calling people over to your table." I'm like, "Yeah, I am." So then he kind of starts to adapt a little bit after kind of witnessing me in action. But if you're not there and calling people's attention to your product, you're not going to sell much. It's part of what you got to do. Now, of course, there are certain things you can do in terms of signage and whatnot that kind of people might passively come by and look at things, and every little bit helps. But primarily, I assume we're talking about conventions. Or are we talking about something else?
No, we're trying to start, but I mean, let's be honest. Our pitches have now got to adapt to these online environments as well. So if you have any advice for it now being part of an online, because we don't always have something set up behind us. I knew this was happening, so I got all my banners set up behind me in my bedroom. I've been going for 20 days plus now. Not everyone's doing this. Not everyone's converted their bedroom into a Comic-Con where they have comic books at a hand's reach. So if you have an adaptation idea for our current situation, please share it.
Well, I mean, really, the primary marketing channel. All right, so there are three when it comes to comic books that I've observed. There's the one that has been suffered the most, and that's putting out a comic book through Diamond to go into comic book stores. I mean, that one's shut down right now. The second means of coming up with a comic book and monetizing it is, of course, like Indiegogo and Kickstarter and YouTube and Twitter and all that. And that avenue is still wide open, which is great. And then the third one is conventions, which has also been, shut down right now. And each of those has kind of a different mode of attack. If you want to like place ads in previews and just distribute through Diamond and hope you can make the minimum order, well, then you don't really have to worry about pitching too much, because Diamond will happily take your money and place your ads and whatnot. But the more you're interacting with people, the more you need to be able to shift focus, and it needs to be specific. Like, these things don't need to be general. These things need to be like whatever audience member you're targeting, you product, and here's you product Y kind of thing. So it needs to be like you should get this, and here's why. And when you start kind of going into it's this thing about the whatever, I mean, really those things are only of interest if the target in general is kind of interest. So I try and make them really short. It's like with it's the story of the two deadliest female fighter pilots who ever lived. And that either interests you or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, well, I'm not going to keep going on about it, because there's something else I could talk about. Like I could shift the folks to Guinevere or try and re-engage them on other things. So.
All right, guys, raise your hands. Who has a comment about pitching or has an idea to share? I'll back out. Luke's hand went up first, and then we got Travis. So I'm going to back out so Travis can come in, and Luke, start off.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really saved me a lot of time is actually asking if people are into comics, because you'd be surprised how many people might be wearing a Batman T-shirt or walking a convention floor that maybe aren't necessarily into comics. They don't really read them. They don't collect them. So you can save a whole lot of breath by just asking, hey, do you like comics? And then if they do, ask them if you got a couple minutes to pitch. Of course, that's when we're going to be in a convention floor, but here it's a little bit different. And like Preston said, there's all kinds of ways that you can do it. And obviously Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these places are a great place to pitch and to promote. But it's really nice that you can kind of seek out people, because right now people are actually looking for books. Even the independent, even the stores are looking for books, and only independent companies are really supplying stories for these guys now, because their customers still want new content. So, but that's just kind of my advice. Make sure that who you're pitching to actually wants to read a comic book, or else you're just going to waste your breath.
So my advice, obviously, is do something fun and cool. For instance, right now, the first person who comments on stuff, hey, I'd like a free book, I'm going to send him a free book. I broke down 4 Dead Bodies. I'll send you it immediately because I'm going to the post office in a couple minutes. Have something unique to bring them to the table. And also, when you pitch, don't be afraid to switch off to the next guy if you don't feel a vibe. Rob is really quick on getting me. I like to talk to people. I like to get to know them. But there's buyers and there's people who are going to really gravitate to you, but know what they want, right? Know if they are a collector. Pitch them the collector's package. See if they're interested in those collector's packages. But if they're not, just go ahead and sell them a single issue. I see a lot of people lose sales because they're continuing to up the sale, and then they lost the sale completely. So my biggest advice is figure out who your audience is, sell to them directly.
Anyone else have a comment on this? We'll rotate you in. Anything further about it? Or we can move on to our next comment. Go ahead, Dan.
So I usually work with Kat Calamia when we table at conventions, and she's very good at asking, like what Luke said, hey, do you like comics? And even if they say no, she'll bring them into the pitch, and I'll bounce off of that. But you still have to really work the pitch these days, and you really have to really work hard. What else? But yeah, just bouncing off what Luke was saying, that even if they say no, just push a little bit. See, they might get, because she's gotten turnover, because I've seen people say no and then still buy the book.
Now, what about the energy? I want Bryan to start this, because I've seen Bryan at conventions, and he has just this magnetic. If you're anywhere near him in an alley, you will hear him. He is excitable. He is awesome. He's got a lot of energy. How important is that energy? Like a wrestler, I think. You have to be ready to go, but you have to go every time someone comes to your table. Talk to us, Bryan.
I just try to create a experience, right? I don't want to bark at them. I don't want to say, come on down. I don't like being the guy, hey, I see you're wearing a Flash shirt. I got some Flash fan art for you. I don't like doing that. But if somebody wants to take the time and walk up to me and say, hey, man, tell me more about what you got going on. I've got so much stuff going on, and I just want to pack it all, and you tell me where to go from there. So I'll tell you about the stuff that I've drawn, tell you about the stuff that I've written. I'll even tell you about the people that I've worked with, and the stuff that I may have going on. Give you little nuggets, and then quickly wait for you to give me something to go on. I want the customer to appreciate me as a person and what I've got going on and the energy that I'm putting out there, so that even if my art was crap, I would want them to say, you know what, I like that guy. I like what he's doing. I like what he stands for. I'm going to give him some of my money. So that's my goal going into it, is just show you who I am and have you believe in what I'm doing.
All right. And anyone else have something to say about energy? Because I think it's one of the most important things, and it's the hardest thing to do, especially over a 4-day show, which, by the way, for those watching, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to miss MegaCon. MegaCon was supposed to be next weekend, and that was going to be huge, and that's a 4-day show, and that's a show that you go home feeling it. You are not right for Monday and Tuesday because your voice is hurt, and you're it's not depressed, you're spent. So that energy gets spent. Luke, talk to me. How important? I mean, you were at Ancient City, and you're the only person who sold a comic book.
I sold all of my comic books at Ancient City. But yeah, I just want to piggyback off what Bryan said. It really is about the energy, and it's about the fan experience. When people buy a ticket to one of those things, they're not going in there just so that they can shop a flea market. They're going in there so that they can have an experience, whether that be with some of the special guests that are there, or whether that be with some of the cosplayers or different presenters that are there. And so when they come by, I want them to be able to have an experience. I want them to walk away saying, you know what, whether they bought the book or not, he had a good time with Luke at his table. He's a cool guy, and I'm excited about independent comics because he's excited about independent comics. So I think it's important, and also to keep that energy up. The most important thing I would say, hydrate, because you can lose your voice pretty quick over a long weekend. And basically what we've been doing recently is really kind of pitching and keeping that energy up with a bunch of different live feeds and live streams and stuff. And so, just to piggyback off that, think about the experience for the fan and help them connect and have something fun to walk away from.
Anyone else have any other comments about this, or can we move on to the? Okay, good, Jonathan, hit us up.
Yeah, I think what makes a huge difference with a con, an in-person con and a virtual con is at the in-person con, you can actually put the product in the person's hand, and they can, it's that tangible connection to the product. Whereas, on these virtual cons, even if you can get the people to watch, putting it in their hand there's so much more steps to do that. Here's the link, but now they have to click the link. Now they have to search, and now they have to pay for the shipping and wait for it in the mail and so forth. So I can't wait to get into a live con again. I think those are super important. And yeah, I'm going to miss MegaCon. June can't come soon enough.
The noises in the background are my son. He's going to be our sounds of a Comic-Con. So we're all going to feel like we're at a Comic-Con with a crazy kid making crazy sounds. Phil, I want to talk to you. Phil, I'm gonna bounce out our friend Jonathan for a minute and bring Phil in. Phil, you're new. Are you intimidated to hit that first table? Like, are you practicing pitching right now? Are you listening to all these people around you and like taking notes? Because I remember when I was new, I was like, tell me everything you do so I can do it too when I get there.
Oh, absolutely. My first con was actually supposed to be about a week from now. That was going to be where I wet my feet, a really small local con. And then everything happened, and I had to very quickly adapt to virtual cons, finding everything I could. Obviously, since I'm new, I'm not in a position to give much advice, but one thing I definitely keep having to remind myself is to be comfortable with your voice and hearing yourself talk. I have this thing where when I open my mouth, I immediately say, oh, that's what I sound like, and I stop talking. And then I think part of, like you were saying, energy and confidence sells the book just as much as the concept, just as much as the art, just as much as looking at it.
That's absolutely true, and I totally understand that. Let's change gears, Phil. You do have something to say because you have a new set of eyes. So what I want you to do today is I want you to listen to us, and I want you to ask questions. I want you to be like, hey, guys, what about this? What about that? I want you to be the person in the room who's testing what we know, and I want you to put us on blast when you think that we might not be doing something, because sometimes we get jaded, we get old, we get stuck in a rut, and we don't remember how it is to be new. And I think there's something fantastic about someone who's doing this for the first time, because there's that new energy of not just nervousness, but I want to conquer the world. And I see a lot of creators. We all go to bad shows, and we all suffer through that, oh my God, not this again, when you're going to the second day after the first bad day at a show. Hello, Ancient City. And it's hard when you have bad shows like that, because it takes away from you. So I want to talk about that, guys. How do you regroup? Phil, I'm going to put you in the back. If you have any comments, just do me a favor, raise your hand, and we're going to bring you right back up, okay?
Sounds.
All right, guys. How do we rally? I want to talk about that. Preston, I can't see you, so I'm going to let you start. How do you rally at a bad show? Because that is so important. And for everyone who knows, bad shows isn't about you guys who are watching. Sometimes it's about the promoter and how they promoted the show. It's about the parking. We know you guys show up and you paid $30 for parking. And look at that beautiful art from Bryan. And we get it. You guys show up, show off the art, Bryan. Show off the art. So we have that thing where look at that. See, I miss that. I miss going to shows and seeing the art and seeing the energy. So how do we rally? How do we rally from bad shows? Who wants to start after Preston? Just raise your hand. Preston, what do we do to rally after a bad show?
Well, all right. So, I mean, look, after a show, I mean, it's over, right? So I don't worry too much about rallying after a bad show.
No, I mean after the first day. Sorry.
Oh, after the first day, right? Well, what I do which seems to work, is I have an iPad where I collect email addresses, and that's a big help. By the way, I recommend that you collect email addresses, because then when you go to do your crowdfund, you've got all these people who have expressed interest, and it helps you build your network. But I have a playlist of like 3.5 days worth of music and a Bluetooth speaker that lights up and stuff. And so, like, look, I'm just there listening to I'm there of the opinion that I'm just kind of doing this fun little party that's at my table. And I invite people to join. And if there's nobody there, well, I'm listening to music I enjoy, and I'm kind of singing along, and I'm having a good time. And I think that's one of the first really real requirements, is that you have to be in a mood that people want to be around, and be like, oh, well, what's this person got going on? They seem like, because it's just human nature. If they see you having a good time, they think, well, what is that person doing that I might do that I might also have a good time? So it kind of engenders a lot of conversation and interaction. The other school is just to kind of put on a happy face even when you're not feeling it. And I don't know. I feel that's not my style. Other people can do that, but if I'm feeling down, I'm going to be a little more subdued. And I've got like way more subdued pitches. I've got but I feel music is really key to keeping my energy up. I think it's one of the easiest vehicles to kind of keeping and maintaining a vibe. So that's how I conduct myself.
Bryan, I want to hot tag you in. I know you had a hard show last year.
2 back to back.
Yeah,
2 shows, 2 cities, $0 made.
Wow.
But
Okay.
Bryan had said such a passionate video, and I don't think a lot of people got it. I think the ones who do cons absolutely got what he was saying. And a lot of people I saw said, finally, someone has said what we're all thinking.
My thing was, during the show, like, if I don't make any money, that's fine. But I figure that somebody who takes the time to talk to me, to ask me about the shit that's going on, or the stuff. If I have a $1 item on my table, which I do, I have trading cards that are $1, and there's 70 different trading cards to choose from. I feel that if you've chewed up 20 minutes talking to me, the least you can do is buy one of these cards that we've talked about during the show. And it's so frustrating, because I could be at home drawing, I could be at home writing, and yet you're like, well, Bryan, why can't you do that stuff at the show? Well, you can, but there's a difference between I'm not in my zone, I'm not in my comfort place, and I'm not ready to crank out the quality work that I want to crank out sitting at the table with an uncomfortable steel chair. So I don't know, man. I don't rally back. I just hate doing them. So I've gotten to the point now where I just won't do. I'm trying not to do shows, because the amount of disappointment. Everybody and their cousin in every city wants to have a Comic-Con, but nobody wants to put in the work to make sure that people show up to the show, and that's what's disheartening.
I'll actually stand and applaud that. That is exactly why we started Greaticon. You have all these people showing up, not doing things. Travis Gibb, Phil says that he would love a free book, and we'll do a review for you as well.
Phil and I have already talked. This is his book. I gave him issue 1 and 2, and I'm packing it right now so I can get to the post office by 1. I'm actually going to jump off pretty quickly.
All right. And so tell them where they can follow you again, so you can make your way out and go get Phil his book.
Yeah, you can find me at Brokedown and FourDeadBodies.com. We're doing a special right now. If you guys are interested in the book, if you buy 1, I'll give you issue 2 for free. It's really cool. That's where you can find me. Follow me on Facebook, Travis Gibb, or Jester Lou on Instagram and Twitter. But I'd love to connect with you, or just message me if you want to talk about comics. I'd love to talk about it. We got a lot of cool things coming up. Jonathan and Bryan are both in Cthulhu Invades Oz. That's going to be a really cool book later this year. So we've got so many cool things to talk to you about. And since I don't have a con to come meet you, you have to come to me so I can talk. So that's it. Signing off.
See you, Travis. Rob, I think you're muted.
I am muted. That's why. I was saying Bryan because Jax was screaming. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
I was like, are you changing the light bulb or are you trying to...
No, I wanted to raise my hand because I had a thing that just, regardless of if we're in quarantine or not, please don't underestimate the power of social media. Like it is a big FD for you to be on social media and to try to gather as many people as you can on social media. Instagram is phenomenal because when you do shows, these are the people that you meet and they're going to follow you. But it's the stuff that I make after I get home. I make more money sitting at home because of the people that I've met through social media. Let's say I go to a show that's 3 days and I'll make, $700, but over the course of the next month, I'll make an additional $700 sitting at my artist table, taking commissions from people that are, hey, I got this going on. And I just want to reiterate the importance of being active on social media. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you all the cool stuff that I've done due to social media, but if you keep your art or your comic book Instagram just for your comic and comic book stuff, then and when people see that stuff, that's your resume. That's your digital resume. So if I'm looking for someone to be part of a project I'm doing, I'm going to go to your social media. And if your social media is BS, I'm not going to mess with you. So just my pointer to anybody, make sure your social media game is on point if you're trying to make it.
And that's great advice, guys. And we're going to have Meredith come in to do a giveaway in just a second. But as we wait for Meredith to come in here and do part of the Geek Out giveaways brought to you by Geek Insider, I do want to touch on one quick thing. And this one is actually going to be, I'm going to bring Phil in this. And I'm going to let Phil answer this. As fans, just fans, what shows do you pick to go to and why? Forgetting being a creator. And then after Meredith gives away the thing when she's ready, we'll come back and we'll talk about as creators why we pick a show. But just as fans, guys, quickly tell us why you pick a show to do and what show do you pick to do. So I'm going to back out and then Meredith will come back in. But Dan, we haven't heard from you in a while. Take this one away. Start this one off for us.
My favorite show as a fan is after my hometown con, New York Comic Con. It's all my favorite writers, all my favorite artists, and I always find new things and new people as well. And opens a lot of new works I haven't seen yet and love stuff that I haven't had a chance to. And it's great to interact with all these people. Though after 2 days or 3 days, I'm dead, but it's just a really great show to go to as a fan, even though I might be just exhausted afterwards. and it's just really great to have this, big giant con experience. But maybe just once a year.
Hey again, everyone. I'm going to give, as much as I agree with Daniel, I think New York Comic Con is great. It's great having something right in my backyard and so much energy and passion there. I think there's also something to be said about small cons, though, local cons. I'm out on Staten Island in New York, and we have a New York Comic Con every year, which is very small, very local. You really get to know all of the creators who are there. They have plenty of really small contests. It's very easy to get wrapped up in the energy when it's the same group every year. It's the same creators you see all the time. And it's just it feels fan-made. It feels more fan-made, I would say. And that really contributes to the experience.
We'll be back right after this.
NSCLiveTV.com is the premier site for comic book sellers to expand their viewership and have their live, reply, or bin auctions showcased while helping viewers find good quality comic book auctions or pop culture content with the ease of simply flipping a channel. They feature artists, writers, news, interviews, reviews, podcasts, cosplayers, and more. Tune in today with NSC and you can enjoy the ease of viewing content without having to search through endless pages. Tune in today. That's NSCLiveTV.com.
And I'm back. There we go. It always helps if you unmute yourself. All right, guys. So let's switch the gears a little bit. Phil, I'm gonna bring in one of the other creators. We'll come back to you in a little bit. We're gonna bring in Dan again. Okay, guys. So why do you pick a show as a creator? This is the other side of it. Let's start with Preston. What are you looking for, Preston, to give your money to buy a table?
Well, it's all about profit at the end of the show. So if it's a local show, I know my costs are going to be lower. So, like I'm very aggressive when it comes to doing local shows. But if it's a show where there's going to be some travel involved, it's going to be, about kind of how well do people tend to do at that show. And so, if you do enough of these shows, you start to get kind of con buddies. Like you're seeing some of the same artists across from you all the time. And you'll be like, hey, Wizard World Cleveland, is that any good? And you'll kind of get these discussions about like, oh yeah. So I know, like for instance, Albuquerque Comic Con, and there's another big show in Albuquerque, and those are good shows because people say those are good shows. You should definitely do that. And if it's a show that is just not getting a lot of positive word of mouth from the other people I do shows with, then that I'm having to travel to, I'm not going to bother.
And Joshua, you're right. This does absolutely suck. And it doesn't suck because we're not just making money. A lot of us creators miss interacting with the people. I know Bryan loves to interact with people. Luke loves to interact with people. Dan loves to interact with people. Jonathan and Preston, we all miss your energy. We miss interacting with you the most. And we have a new fan joining us with Bryan. Bryan, how do you pick a show?
I pick a show by who will pay for my table. That's how I do it nowadays. But for me, like Dragon Con is a huge experience there because it's 4 days of cosplay of celebrities and just a massive amount of people in Atlanta. So that's a big one that I really enjoy being a part of. But like as a fan, I'd rather go to Heroes Con every time. I'm an East Coast guy, and Heroes Con is where you can. It's nothing but comic book creators, and that has a special place in my heart since about 1990.
All right, Dan, how do you pick your show? And she's cute, by the way, Bryan. So adorable. Makes me miss Jax when Jax was that little, as he's yelling in the background. Dan, how do you pick a show?
Two factors. One, cost. I can only afford so much for a table, so I'd like to get the best deal possible for the table. So I end up doing some local shows, and I save a little bit more for a bigger show like Baltimore. And also, because I don't drive, I have to also consider travel. And so I usually go up and down the East Coast via Amtrak, so that's another additional cost plus cab between, train station and hotel and whatnot. So it's all these mitigating factors that I have to factor in, figure out which conventions to go to.
And we're going to go live to Jonathan. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on this? That's interesting, Jonathan.
Hey, sorry about that. Did you guys ask a question? I had someone at my door.
I said, how do you pick your con? Like how do you pick what show you're going to? Are you going to sign up for Ancient City after last year? Are you going to go to Does SuperCon let you in, or are they just sticking to no Florida creators because they brought everyone else here? How do you pick a show?
It all depends on how convenient it is for me to get to. That's the main thing. What's my schedule like? How much traveling am I going to have to do? Am I going to if it's like a multi-day show, am I going to have to rent a room at the hotel or a hotel nearby? And then I have to weigh that cost versus how much I think I could sell in one day. So, as much as I would love to do more shows outside of Central Florida and outside of Florida in general, it's just not, within my budget to do versus unless they're going to pay me to be there. Unfortunately, that's not happening anytime soon, to be honest. So.
Phil, and then we're going to go to Luke because I do want to end this with Luke just because I am curious. Phil, what for you, because you're brand new, are you looking at just hyper local, or are you looking for things maybe you could table with a friend to cut costs? For those who don't know, a lot of times earlier, I still do it. I split tables with people. It just lowers your cost. And if you do it with the right people, and we're going to talk about this, you can tag in and out. You can do that with your neighbors as well. But Phil, what are you looking for?
I think, like Daniel said earlier, travel is a very big component. There's kind of a function of how big is the con going to be and how far away is it. If it's potential for big revenue, big sales, then I'm willing to travel for 3 hours to DC to go to a con versus if it's a small local con, I'm willing to drive maybe 45 minutes. To answer your first question, I had been, before all of the craziness happened and canceled all of these cons, I had been planning to share a table with a friend and fellow creator. Definitely think it would be helpful to have someone to build off of and help sell with, and kind of bounce each other's energy off of, especially when you're selling very different books and give like different products that you could talk about in tandem with one another.
Very, very cool. And we're going to go to Luke. And one of the reasons I'm going to go to Luke last is, Luke, you had a good experience at Ancient City Comic Con last year. You're one of the few people, honestly.
Yeah.
But you read the room. You saw how upset everyone else was at it. Is that a show that's on your radar for this year, assuming that we restart quickly? And we are going to try to touch on what we think is about to happen.
Yeah.
I'm trying, and I do want to get to your comments, Pete. We're going to break to do comments in a minute, and then we'll get back to more topic-driven comments. But I want to address our audience because I want them to know, honestly, how important they are. But Luke, is Ancient City back on the docket potentially? And how do you?
100% for me that it's back on the docket, and there's a few reasons. Because here's the thing about Ancient City Con. It's going to be one of the few cons that are probably going to be able to host this year, if they get to host at all, because they're so late in the year, which means the fans are going to want to go to it. It's probably going to be pretty busy. I did have a good experience at Ancient City, but I tend to have here's my approach, Rob. I know you didn't have a good experience, but I sold out. I sold probably 150 units over the course of those 3 days. Okay, so I sold quite a bit of comics, and the reason why is because I didn't get down. I saw the room was down, but I was like, I tried to make the best I could with each individual that I had an opportunity to connect with. I'm a salesman. That's what I used to do that for a living. And so I would move and I would identify who was a potential customer and who wasn't. And so, yeah, Ancient City Con is definitely on my radar for this year. But to get to the point of how I choose a convention to go to, there's 3 factors that I use. And some of you might know, some of you have already said it, the distance and the cost. But I also look at, I consider distance as part of my cost. What's the cost to me to do it? What's my potential cost? Like, what's my potential income? How well has it been promoted? Is it a crowd that I think I can connect with? Is there, is the artist alley, or where my table would be? Is it going to be positioned in a place where I have the ability to connect with people on a regular basis throughout the day? And then the third thing that I look at is how many other creators are going to be there, and am I going to have the opportunity to connect and network? Because not every convention for me is about making money. Some of those, it's worth the cost for me to meet other people like you guys and to be able to build those relationships and those networks. And so those are the 3 things that I look at. And I can only, because of my job, I can only really hit 4 full weekends a year in any kind of convention. So I really like to stick to something that's close and local, and something where I can maybe run into the fans later on. I think it is one of the things that I do.
Meredith, as part of you go around. We met at a show. How do you pick the shows? Do you doing press passes, the ones who allow you access, or is it I have to go to this show because this is where the people are going to be? Talk us through it. How does Geek Insider decide what shows to go to?
Well, for Geek Insider, basically what happened was I'm a fairly new Florida resident. I've been here for 5 years. So I didn't really know the scene at all. And I got a message from Matthew and Rhett and said, how far away are you from the Space Coast? And I was like, about 3 hours. Why? And they said, well, I want to represent Geek Insider at Space Coast Comic Con. And I was just like, okay. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. So we've been, we've got people in the Northeast. You've got me down in Florida. We've got a few people in Texas. Nobody yet out on the West Coast. And so what we're trying to do is, as we have local conventions that are near us that we can go to physically, we're applying for press passes. If we can't get them and they're really super cool, then we're like, okay, well, we're gonna buy ourselves in and try and get these quick interviews. So when I was there, that's what I did with you. We had a quickie interview, and and that kind of went into connecting on social media and doing all of these other shows. So it became really an organic way of networking, and that's what we've been doing. Is that if it's close to us, unfortunately, a lot of these things have been canceled. I was supposed to go to TFCon. MegaCon, I don't know. Disney closed until May. So is MegaCon going to happen in June? Yes. I don't know.
Yes.
So, I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I need to get out of the house. Don't talk that way, Meredith. That's my escape plan.
I'm hoping. I've got my press pass for MegaCon, and I really want to be there. But we don't know. So that's the way we're doing it. Is if it's close to us and we can get there, great. If we get press passes, great. If not, we're going to do our best to budget it in and be there and really kind of network and find more people.
I haven't given out a free hug in 10 weeks.
I know.
I'm jonesing. I have to get back out there. See, I gotta get back out there. Let's do some comments. Meredith, I'm going to swing you out to bring in another creator so we can do some comments.
Yep.
So I'm bringing Dan back in, and here we go. We're going to go through some comments. You guys want to make a comment? The floor is open. We're going to start with Phil Locker says, compliancy and robotic pitches can kill a con experience quicker than anything. I know a guy who has a very robotic pitch, and Luke, I think you've heard us joke about this with the creator, but he does a great job with it. I don't know. I think as long as it can be robotic if it's passionate. I think what it has to do is you have to, when you're talking, it has to sound like you mean what you say. You can't be stumbling on your pitch. What do you guys think? Preston, do you want to start this one? Because again, I can't see you raising your hand.
Well, going back to, I think you said something very important. You have to mean what you say, which is why earlier when we were talking about mood and energy, like if I'm feeling down, I'm not going to try and project up, because I think you're already starting off on like a level of cognitive dissonance, which is going to screw things up. If I'm down, if it's been a bad show, if I'm tired, then I'm going to be more subdued, and then, that's fine. I think you have to be where you are and not worry about where you're not. So yeah, sincerity is, I think, the most important thing. And once you can fake that, you've got everything else made.
All right. Anyone else want to jump in on that one? Bryan, what do you think? Robotic pitches, are they going to kill the con experience? Because you're far from robotic.
Yeah. I don't have a robotic pitch, simply because I want everything to be organic. So if I'm interacting with somebody, I want them to get, well, honestly, to be 100% honest, I haven't had a product to pitch robot with a robot. Like I've never had anything except for, hey, I draw pictures. So I've just now created my first IP, and I haven't had I haven't had a chance to try to pitch it to anybody because I haven't been at a live show with people there.
Bryan, there's no time like today. Give it to us. Hit us up.
I don't even have a pitch, man. All I know is, all right, World War III has happened, and the United States is broken in half, and in the midst of the dead half of the United States, there's a giant mutated turtle named Loggerhead, and people treat him as if he is he's mythical. Everybody claims to have seen him, but nobody can prove he exists. So he's kind of like a Sasquatch or a Chupacabra. Like, is Loggerhead real?
Take my money. Take my money now. More about Loggerhead. No. What do you think, Luke Stone? And I'm picking on you because you're drinking, because I'm that guy. Yes, the minute someone's not at their chair or they drink, they're the first person I call on. Luke, talk to me. How important is the pitch? Is a robotic pitch the end of that pitch?
Yeah, I think so. I think that once you get into the if you're real complacent, energy has a lot to do with it. If you're not passionate about your work, then no one else is going to be. And I've heard it said, "Oh, my work speaks for itself." Well, I speak for my work. I have no problems doing that because people will come by and look at the pictures and they might like those, but it takes a minute to read the story, and the only way they're going to get to know the story is if I pitch it to them. And so anyone that just has that kind of robotic and stale kind of complacent attitude about their pitch, they're probably not going to do very good.
I think that I have a unique experience with pitching because I grew up as a wrestling fan. What about you, Dan? How do you get away from sounding robotic? Because we do this pitch at a given show, and I'll give a little tip while Dan's unmuting. Go ahead, Dan, unmute. I change up my pitches so I don't drive myself crazy. So I have several pitches ready to go at all times for every book, and that sometimes hurts me because I'll screw myself up and mix the pitches, but the person never knows. But I hear it. I'm mad at myself. But Dan, how do we stay away from being Mr. Roboto at our table?
You can rehearse it all you want, but you have to keep up the energy levels. And as you said, you have to vary it up a bit. And I've been times where I had the pitched down cold, I've had the energy, but I trip over my own words. So even that can happen. So hope for the best, expect things can happen.
So, Phil, are you standing in front of the mirror pitching? Are you looking at your own face? Have you taken that advice where you're trying to get that pitch in your dreams? Because I do this awful thing on my panels where, and anyone who's been on my panel knows this, I point to them and go, your pitch, randomly throughout whenever we're talking about creating comics. And it's better when they're new and they don't know it's coming. Once they've been on a panel a couple of times, it's not as much fun because they know it. But are you ready for that, Phil? Are you ready for anyone to just show up? I've sold a comic book while changing a dirty, poopy diaper. That is the skill level I am at, Phil. Are you ready to be there?
I don't think I've leveled up to that level yet. I say I'm super comfortable typing it now since I've typed my pitch probably 1,000 times at this point. But definitely agree. Energy level has to be high. You need to have variations so that you don't sound bored with your own pitch. I have maybe 16 different notes with different ways to pitch my comic. And, I have a favorite that I try to default to, but even I get sick of that sometimes. So definitely try to vary it, try to cater to the person you're talking to. And I'll start changing diapers. I'll steal some kid and change some diapers when I pitch so I can get to your level, Dan. Rob.
I feel we're kind of not addressing what I feel is the main issue when you're kind of attempting to engage people at conventions, and that's when do you start pitching? Because to me, it's not if someone's walking in front of my table, I don't go, hey, do you want to hear my comic about the deadliest female fighter pilot who ever lived? That's how you fall into a robotic pattern, is that I think you're just there and you're hoping an interaction springs forth, so you just kind of start, and that's not how I do it. And I think if the pitch is something that is like the third or fourth element of your social interaction instead of the first, I think it's going to be a lot better and convert higher, and quite frankly will leave everybody less frustrated, because it's frustrating to sit there and try and engage people who don't want to be engaged.
All right, so Preston, what's the giveaway for you? Because I'm big on the reading. You're talking about reading the audience, and I completely believe in that. So what's the key for you? For me, it's eye contact. When someone makes eye contact with me, clearly they're trying to engage.
Yes, that's absolutely a help. Another one is look, I've done so many conventions. I really just come down to, I just look at somebody and I go, I make comic books. And for whatever reason, that line will stop a lot of people. They'll sit there and they'll process it, and then they'll stop and they'll look at me and go, did you say you make them? I'm like, yeah, I make them. This is my 2 titles. I got White Lily and I got Guinevere. This one's a war story, and the other one's about a sexy lady who can do magic. Do either of those interest you? And, if they're starting to give me buy-in, I'm showing them art or whatever, just pointing to it. But my attitude up to this point is, you can just keep walking. That's fine. I'm just going to sit here behind my table. But if those interest you, I can tell you about them. And if they go, yeah, I want to hear, and once they go, I want to hear about blank, then they've given me their permission and attention to present the material. But if they haven't kind of consented to be pitched to, I don't engage them in that way. I instead more and look, I've sold a fair amount of comics, because Guinevere and the Divinity Factory, I wrote there's a kind of fetish room in issue 1. It's kind of this Gatsby-esque take on the Harry Potter wizard school, but instead it's like the Gatsby mansion where there's just this big party, and I have like a fetish room in it. And there's a fair amount of people who have like fetish gear or collars or like rubber latex dresses, whatnot. Or they're walking along the con, and if I see one of those people, their back could be turned to me, and I'll be like, wait, I got you, I so got you right here. And they'll turn to me like, what? I'm like, check it out. And I'm like, this story right here. And like once they look at me, and they will look at me like, why did you single me out? And but like once I get to boom, and there's this room where people are getting a little freaky, and I'll go, this was a big hit in Portland, Oregon. I don't know what's going on up there. Like, they're engaged, and they'll smile, and then they'll look, and they'll go, okay. And a lot of times, like so many people will sit there and buy after I've gone, this is for you because I understand, like, well, that symbol that you're wearing means this. And that is just like this thing in my content. And, you put these things together and people will get engaged. But you have to have some kind of personal connection or something. And if you don't, and they're just walking, I make comic books. That's just what I say. And a lot of people will say, no, thank you. I'm like, I still make comic books regardless of whether you're interested or not, so, but
Preston, bringing fetish books to a convention, what do you think?
Exactly.
What do you think? Honestly, I cheat a little bit. I do cheat because I use banners.
Sure.
And that banner, if I can put my hand right.
Yeah, I also use banners. So
stops people in their tracks.
Yeah.
And I totally, I'm with you. I whenever I table with someone, I get mad at them when they call over someone who's just not interested. You know, people who are trying to run down your alley, or they're just following their friends, and you're like, no, you're really going to like comics. Like, I ask people flat out, do you read comics? Nope. Have a good day. Still hope for you. See you later. Bye. I'm not going to, what am I going to twist his arm? We have to put up our displays. Luke, are we wrong? Do you have to know? Because you're a preacher. And I think it's interesting that you're a preacher because you learn to read people, right? Like, that's kind of your bag.
Yeah, it's understanding the person that you've got in front of you and knowing when you've got on the hook and when you don't. I think that that's the biggest part of my pitch, is knowing when I've got someone. I public speak every Sunday. That's what I do, and usually it's in front of a room of people. Lately, it's in front of a webcam, but in front of a room of people. Some people just don't know how to read the audience. They don't know how to look at the person they're engaging with, and the thing is even if I'm pitching to 3 or 4 people at once or one person, it doesn't matter the size of the group. It's the eye contact, it's the engaging with them individually, and it's knowing when I've got them, when I don't. There's really there's kind of 3 levels of buyers I found. There is they are cold, which means they are not ready to buy yet. They're just browsing. They're warm. That means they kind of have an idea that they might want to invest in this, and then they're hot, which means they're ready to buy. It's the shut up and take my money group. And you've got to be able to identify which one of those, at what stage the person that you're talking to is in. So understanding body language and facial expressions and knowing how to engage people, pull them into it. If you don't have them in the first few sentences with your pitch, then you're probably not going to have them. And if like someone said earlier, I'm a package guy. I like to put together a whole bunch of stuff that is makes the value to the customer really, really high. But there's no point in doing all that if they're not even interested in the base thing. If they're not even a little bit interested in the, I think the loggerhead sounds awesome, but maybe not everyone's going to like that, right?
Shut your mouth. Everyone will like loggerhead. It will be the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I am investing heavily. That when the stock comes out, I'm investing in it. But I just want to catch this. You said that you're interested in people's packages. So we'll move on really quickly to we're going to move on to the next question. How do you guys attract people? Really, I just wear a tank top and I go like this all day. I just kind of, no. Actually, you're not supposed to wear a tank top. I found out at it. You have to dress professionally when you're at it. I'm in a tank top, so I live in Florida, and it's hot here. It is 90 degrees this weekend. Welcome to Florida. But displays. Your displays have to speak for yourself. Guys, how important are your displays? And what do you put out on your table? I have handcuffs that have been on my table. I've had monster heads that are on my table. I put things out that stop people right away in their tracks. And I think Luke's seen people just stop at my table and smile. And I've got them. I believe in fishing as opposed to hunting. And
Rob,
I do think
you have a sign on your table that says, if 50 Shades of Grey was written by someone who understood the subject matter. And it's not my subject matter at all, but I remember that because it made me laugh. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get what this is all about now.
And you get the table, and there's a sense of humor, and I'm inviting people in.
Yeah.
So, Dan, how are you inviting in people? Are you doing the wrestler thing? Yeah. Or you got something maybe a little more subtle, maybe a thing on your table that invites them for a conversation? Maybe it's free candy. You can't. I'm more like this, Bryan. The people's eyebrow. So, Dan, how do you do it? How do you bring them over?
Tune in to The Answer right after this.
Hey guys, how you doing? This is Jake Estrada from Indie Originals. This year, for Indie Originals 2020, we've added another category, and that's comic books, independent comic book creators. That's right, guys. Here we are. We're inside a comic book shop, and look at all these beautiful comic books. I want to tell you, indie comics are the backbone of Marvel and DC, because Marvel and DC cherry picks certain creators, and they make these guys superstars. So that's why we added comic books. But I'm a comic book guy as well. I'm the creator of Bokas, soon to be released feature film. And we also have Terrence Baker as a judge, along with Nino Mazzarina, who does the Unbelievable Laundry Detergent Man, along with his little comic strip that he does for the Chicago Tribune. You need to sign up. You can go to www.indieoriginals.com and sign up for the Indie Originals comic book contest. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. Peace out.
Well, I just try to do a really good display. I dress it like this, nice shirt over a t-shirt. My last card I did was actually in January before this whole thing happened. I had gotten a one of those it's not CBCS copies of my own comic, actually, of issue 1, and that was a nice little conversation piece. I also have prints that are nicely laid out. I also have business cards that are nicely laid out. But the thing I want to use when we finally are back to doing conventions, I recently got an action figure of the main character of my book recently, and I think that's going to be a good conversation piece when all is said and done and that everything starts back up again. But
it helps if I unmute. So the action figure, are you selling it too, or is it just a prop?
It's display. It's one of a kind.
Oh, okay. So will you mass produce them at a point if it's popular enough?
Oh, no. It was part of a Kickstarter award that the Short Fuse did.
Fair enough. All right. So who else here? Preston's, I think, Preston, if you can hear me, the system's saying you're having problems connecting. Bryan, let's talk about that. And then Phil, I want to know what your plans are for your table. But Bryan, what do you do with the display? Does the display change? Because you're an artist. Are you trying to aim for popularity of that show?
I haven't figured out the formula. When I was just a fan artist, it was like, how many pictures of Deadpool and Harley Quinn can you put up in the background to let people know that you're there? And I find myself, now that I'm creating IP and I'm writing comic books, I want to distance myself from the guy that has a banner that goes to the ceiling and has a picture of every character you've ever seen before, but he's not creating IP. I don't want to be the fan art guy anymore. So I'm trying to theme my booth to say, hey, I make stuff. You want to check me out. One thing I've noticed that works really well are breasts. So if you have like a big banner that has some boobs on there, I did that. I didn't even have a female character that I was working on, but I created a female character just so I could have a banner with some big old titties behind me, and I could try to get people to come up to me like that way. It didn't work, because once they realized that I couldn't draw females very well, they're like, oh, I don't care if your thing has big old boobs. But so I think theme is important, and I'm currently working on. I've commissioned like a 2-foot statue of Loggerhead to be created, so that I will have a nice badass 2-foot statue of Loggerhead on my table to help engage the conversation.
So, Phil, are you going to have big boobies at your table to attract attention like Bryan? Or do you have a different strategy in mind? And I do want to say, thank you to Joshua. Joshua's asked some great questions. I know he'll come back and watch this later, and I wanted to say we appreciate you taking the time with us today. And he's doing an Easter egg hunt. I wish I was with him right now. I would love to be with him. And Preston's joined us again. So go ahead, Phil, and then we'll go to Preston, and we'll let him know what question we're at.
Sure. So I think my big plan was just to go high concept. My story at its core is about a kid, a boy, but it's ghosts around him, and ghosts are very visually interesting. So, a banner that really emphasizes that element, anything I could put on the table that conveys this is a supernatural horror comic, because there's a built-in audience for that. Just before this, you had a panel about paranormal investigators. There's definitely a market there. That's a way that I'm hoping to grab people by going high concept, and then gradually introduce them to, this is my book, these are my characters, this is my story.
And that makes sense. And we're going to, Preston, we're just bringing you in. Thank you for sharing that, Phil. Preston, we're talking about displays and the importance of displays. We're going to let Jonathan talk because Jonathan's been a little quiet, and then we're going to come to you. So we're talking about what do you do to grab attention beyond pitching, bringing them over without conversation. So, Jonathan, I've seen you at your shows. Talk to us about your setup and what you're doing to make people notice you.
Yeah, so I put out my product as close to the edge of the table without some stupid cosplayer knocking it over.
We love you, cosplayers. We love you.
All right, I love them too. Back to what I said before about putting that product in their hand. You got to have something that they can, the tangible part of it all, and when they can reach for it and they can see it and touch it, and it makes more sense to them, and they're more likely to want to purchase it. And to piggyback on what Bryan says about the sex sells. I have a comic book with a female character, so she's on the cover, and then my other comic book capable with I'm not trying to pander to the handicap crowd, but it does bring people to my table. They see the main character in a wheelchair, and they think about the person that they know that's handicapped, and then we start a conversation about it, and I can begin my pitch that way. So, and then also you have those people that do the slow crawl by walks where they're kind of just glancing. Just ask them, hey, are you enjoying the con? You enjoying the show? How's your weekend? And then sometimes that just starts off the conversation, and you can, ease into a pitch that way.
And we are congratulating Luke Stone. It turns out Luke Stone is the door prize winner for Swamp Thing, donated by Kevin from NSC Live TV. And congratulations, Luke. See, you're finally getting somewhere. You got Swamp Thing. That's a cool little collectible item. So you definitely have to say thank you to Kevin personally, and we thank Meredith, and Meredith is going to join us. Meredith, when's the next giveaway?
It would help if I got off of mute, right? We're actually getting ready to do that, and I'm going to probably kick myself off and let Matt promote that because we've got something really cool from Mobile Edge. So is Matt in here yet?
Not yet. We'll do another quick question as soon as Matt gets here. I'll bring him in.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So, Preston, talk to us about your display.
Well, I have a retractable banner, which, is pretty cool. I also have commissioned custom tablecloths that have, the artwork and the logos and all that on it. And, tablecloths I also help. So those are the end. I wear T-shirts for the comic books, and that's about as far as I go. So that's my present. And most everything is just like I got a lot of product, so I try and fill up the table with a fair amount of product that's eye catching that people are going to want to buy.
And man, have you seen that guy Luke's display? Oh, Luke, talk to us about your display.
I like to use a lot of color and big bright images and stuff. This is one of the displays I use. So there are ladies on there. You can see the top of it there. So it shows the logo, and it brings in kind of some attention. I think that people want to come in and they want to see art. That's the kind of thing they want to see something. So I try to bring big displays with a lot of color so that they can see it.
All right, we're going to bring back in Phil. This is lightning round, so we only have 10 minutes left. I've been showing some of it. This is an interesting one. Even if cons can open on schedule, are people going to have the money to go to these after their time of being unemployed? Look, we can't look at it that way. We are entertainers. End of day, we are entertainers. We're going to have to show up, and we're going to have to be there, and we're going to have to support our communities. And the rest is going to fall into place. That's not in our control as creators. It's a great question, and trust me, we're all asking it privately, but none of us have the right answer. We have stimulus checks coming. What are those going to look like? A lot of people have been home. That means a lot of people haven't been spending as much money. Not going out to the bar saves you money. Not going out to the movies saves you money. Maybe people will have money. We just don't know yet. It's too early to say that. But it is a great question. I did want to actually say that. And we got a comment that says, gee, you had a giant mutated turtle. You had me at a giant mutated turtle. Right? Like, I'm like, this dude, and if you haven't seen it, if you have a picture, Bryan, on your way out, you have to show it. It's amazing. And Joshua says, Mervis says, if I take 20 minutes of your time, I will buy something for sure. And that's awesome. I like people who buy something just to buy it. You know what I mean? Like, they've spent time with you, and they're I will buy something from you. We also have, I want to get everything in here. Here we go. Haha, that's great. Books by Bond. Preston, were you at Wizard World Austin last year?
Yes.
Yes, Preston was there. I think you might have met Matthew Harris then. Hopefully a fan.
Cool.
So it's good to connect. And it's always nice to see. Isn't it cool to meet people from a show on social media? Isn't that like one of the best moments when they connect?
Wizard World Austin was weird. It was one of the only shows where I sold a book walking to the show.
Cool.
Yeah, that was weird. Because Austin has a bit of a problem with homelessness, and I parked where the parking was cheap, and so I'm walking to the show, and I just had a pile of books to read in my hand because I figured the show was going to be kind of slow, which it kind of was. But I'm walking by this gaggle of homeless people who are kind of sitting propped over against the wall, and this one guy says, "Hey, is that Harley Quinn there in that book?" I'm like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Cool, can I see that?" I'm like, "Should I show it to him?" And he ends up buying the damn thing. So I'm like, "All right, well, fair enough." So Wizard World Austin will always have that distinction for me, and it was also where I got my my very first start, my very first con as a comic creator was Wizard World Austin back in like 2017. So fun memories.
Very cool. Now, since you're on the hot mic, let's start with you. Say your goodbyes. Believe it or not, our time is just about over, but I want to give you guys a minute each to just tell us where they can find you. So, Preston, tell them where to become a fan of you if they haven't already on this show.
Well, I'm over on YouTube at Pocket Jacks Comics. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm about to launch an Indiegogo, and I'm also about to launch a Kickstarter. So I use both platforms, and I cycle my campaigns really quick. So I just had a Kickstarter finish like a couple of weeks ago, and I'm about to launch another one in 2 weeks. So I specialize in just rapid fulfillment because I want to get a product in people's hands and then go, now that you've seen that, wait till you see the next thing. So I'm always kind of churning campaigns.
And Dan, tell us where we can find you and how we can continue our fandom of you.
You can find me on Facebook at Daniel Kalban. You can also follow American Dreams on Facebook at American Dreams Comic. You can find me on Twitter at Daniel Kalban and on Instagram as DKalban.
Phil, how can we watch your upcoming journey into comics and begin to become a fan of you as you enter?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Haunting Comic. Again, we're live on Kickstarter right now, so if you're interested, go check us out there. Thanks a lot to Geek Insider for having me here.
And welcome to Making Comics. You've already done something everyone talks about, few do. So welcome to the alumni of Real Comic Book Creators, which is also introducing this year. Bryan has stepped up and is now an IP holder. Look at that amazingness.
Yeah, so just any search engine, whether it's social media or on Google, just type in Bryan, Bryan, and type in the last name Silverbax, Silver, BAX, and y'all can find me and check all the cool stuff that I'm doing. And I also have a Facebook group called Silverbacks HQ, where we grow as creative individuals.
And Luke Stone, how can they follow you?
Yeah, you can find me at LukeStoneStudios.com or find me on Twitter at LukeStoneStudio, or you can find me at Luke Stone Studios on Facebook. We've got the Kickstarter going right now for issues 1 through 5 of Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. We do have just right around 8 days left on that campaign, but we have some special tiers that this is going to be in the last 24 hours, or it's going to be no longer available, and that's called the Hard Times Value Bundle. And so you can get all the books for a very reasonable price with very low shipping. So that's only going to be available until tomorrow at like 5 p.m. So make sure to look me up at LukeStoneStudios.com or find me on Twitter or Facebook, or you can also Google Luke Stone Studios and find me there too. Find that Kickstarter link and back that thing. Thank you.
And there's definitely that cool Kickstarter video with a great voice actor.
A great voice in there.
Hi, everybody. I am Mr. Andersin. The wrestling crowd will get that joke. I am the underground indie advocating devil, and I create books about fetish monsters and more. I invite you to come follow me at theindiedevil.com or mranderson.com. But more importantly, check out indieadvocates.com. It is the global digital Comic Con. It actually supports indie creators. And coming this year, we're now building the Underground Comics Advocate. It is basically the indie advocate for underground comics, because underground comics don't get as much love. We make books about fetish that aren't understood, so we have to be labeled as underground. But you know what? Underground is where it's at. We're still indie creators. We just are in a different, more, not caring society of just creating great books for you guys to read. They aren't always capes and tights, but they're amazing and they're interesting. We're going to get out of everyone's way, but I do want to thank everyone who spent the day with me on this panel. You are all awesome. You all creating comics, and you're all entertaining the people stuck at home. And one day they're going to let us out of our boxes again, and we will go to rule the cons. I appreciate everyone tuning in today. Thank you for spending the day with me. You are all awesome. Keep creating comics, and we're going to get out of the way because there's a huge, amazing guest coming up next, a friend of mine who I get to see all the time. So I might just stay in the background, being quiet, just watching. So I'm going to get out of your hair. Matthew, take it away.
Thank you for tuning in to Geek Out Virtual Con Comic Book Corner with our special host, Rob Andersin. He's the underground indie advocating devil, and you should follow him on indieadvocates.com. We also want to thank our special guests, Bryan Silverbax, Daniel Kalban, Jonathan Hedrick, Luke Stone, Phil Falco, Preston Poulter, and Travis Gibb. If you're listening, make sure that you're following these guys on their social media and check out their Kickstarters and their comic books. But wait, we've got more panels and special guests for Geek Out Virtual Con. Be sure to subscribe to the Geek Insider podcast, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, and we're now on iHeartRadio. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and tell your friends. If you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.